G'day fellas and welcome to an Age of Empires 4 guide for the Byzantines, the brand new civilization available in the Sultan's Ascend expansion pack. Today we're playing on one of the new maps which is called Forts, and we've got that beautiful Japanese spring biome which is brand new to the Sultan's Ascend expansion. So today's video we're going to be talking about the Cistern. The Cistern is a unique mechanic available to the Byzantines and the Byzantines only, and it's quite complicated, so I figured I'd make this video just to give you a bit of insight as to how it works. When you start off in Age of Empires 4 at the beginning of your game, you're going to be able to afford to make a cistern. And it's quite cheap early on, but keep in mind, as you go up and create more cisterns, the cost of those cisterns will scale. So our first cistern has cost 50 stone, whereas our second one will cost 100. And that's going to continue going up each time that we build additional cisterns. So at your standard game, you're going to start off by moving all of your villagers over onto sheep underneath your town center, and probably train a couple of villagers up under your TC as well. So you're going to be looking early on as the Byzantines to drop down a cistern, and we want to make sure that we put it in the right spot, because this building is incredibly important to place correctly. So let's talk about that. If we click on the cistern, you'll see that there's actually two different mechanics that are going on. The first one is the golden circle, the second one is the golden square. I want you to pay attention to the golden circle for the moment, because to me that's the most important in the early game. What that golden circle does is it buffs up your gathering speed for your villagers. Any villager operating within that area is going to get a 5% buff initially to its gather rate. As the water level increases of the cistern, and I know I haven't even really touched on too many mechanics yet, we'll get to it, but as you go through the levels, there's 5 different levels for the cistern, you will increase that rate even further, so from 5% all the way up to 25%. In the early game, you're going to want to try and focus the cistern on berries and gold. And you want to make sure that it just, as you can see where I've got it positioned at the moment, it just hits the very front of the gold vein. So something like this would be an optimal position, because I also get the berries. And I want to make sure that I'm maximizing my efficiency and hitting every single one of the berry bushes so that my villagers are always being buffed up. So that's the first cistern that we've thrown down. The second component to the cistern, which we mentioned earlier, is the golden square. Now, one of the things to note with the golden square is it's very particular about where you can place it. You can't place these bad boys anywhere near each other. They require you to have a little bit of space in them. So don't be surprised if you try and put it down and the game tells you, computer says no, it will happen. And you might be pulling your hair out and wondering why. It's because, as you can see here, these golden squares cannot intersect. They are not allowed to, so they always have to be, they can be as far away as you like, but they just can't be super duper close. So keep that in mind. So now that you've done that, and you've got your golden square that you can look at, this is going to affect buildings. So we've got the golden circle, which affects the villagers, and then we've got the golden square that affects the buildings within that radius. The golden square provides 3 different bonuses. You can choose whichever one you'd like at whichever cistern you'd like, and that will offer a bonus to all the buildings within that square. The first one, it's going to increase your military production speed. So that means that if you're training a spearman in 15 seconds and all of a sudden you've got conscriptio, and let's say you're at level 5, that means instead of 15 seconds, it's now producing in 7.5 seconds. It's a pretty big buff. The second one that you've got increases your research speed. So let's say that you're researching wheelbarrow in the early game. You can switch it over to this so that you can research it even faster. Then, finally, and most importantly, we've got Presidium. Presidium? I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. Presidium. Which reduces the amount of damage that you take when your buildings are getting attacked. That's pretty important when you think about it. Not just for the early game, but for the mid game and the late game as well. This can be incredibly strong. 25% reduced income or reduced incoming damage. That's a lot of damage. So let's talk a little bit more about the mechanics, about how the cisterns work, about how they connect to each other. Because a lot of people might look at this and think, well, this is gonna get pretty complicated. And look, I'll be honest with you. You're right. It is gonna get complicated, but I'll do my best to try and explain it to you. The cisterns are connected through aqueducts. These guys build very similarly to walls. One thing to note though is that when you build a wall, you're kind of free drawing. You can draw these bad boys any way you like. Whereas when you're building an aqueduct, they actually go on the tiles in between the tiles, if that makes, or on the lines in between the tiles. So that can mean that if I want to throw down I might put a farm or an olive grove here, and I might put another olive grove here, and then I'll put another olive grove right here. Olive grove's probably not the best one to do it, because with the olive grove you can actually go over the top of them, But essentially, you're going past them like this, which means that you never really have to worry about not being able to connect your cisterns together. You're always going to be able to find a way to do it, a route to do it. There will always be an optimal route for you to do it, but it's pretty easy to do, pretty simple stuff. So now that we've talked about the bonuses that you get from the cistern, let's talk a little bit about the mechanics and the way that it works as you level it up. So we're still in the Dark Age here, and we'll stay in the Dark Age for a little bit because we can still make more cisterns. So I'm going to throw down another cistern in the back of my base, and I'm going to make sure that I connect it here. So what's important to note is that when I'm connecting my aqueducts to it, if this aqueduct gets taken out, it will disconnect the cistern from the network. And because of that, all of the other cisterns are also going to be losing water levels. As you connect more cisterns to the network, each of the water levels of the other connected cisterns will increase. They've all got independent bonuses, but they share the water level. As you can see, they've all risen now to 3 after being connected. So that means that my villages within the influence, so if we were to select all of these cisterns here, all of the villages that would be inside the influences here would be getting buffed up by 15%. Of course, this does not stack because then we'd be talking about some crazy numbers, 45%. That is just not happening here. So don't think about that as a mechanic because it just simply isn't. But as your water increases, your rate will increase. Now, one of the sneaky little things that you can do, which I don't think the developers necessarily intended to do, but I don't think there's any way you can really stop it. So you can put down a barracks here. I'm going to just turn on a little cheat here. We'll do in a jiffy. And what you can do is you can actually put cisterns in a way that intersect the building 3 times. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing this because it seems like a pretty silly thing to do. It's a bit of a waste. I'm just showing you guys because, you know me, I'm a bit of a memer sometimes. I like to find any exploit I can, and I'm like, oh, I'll exploit that. So now we've got a barracks that's got 3 cisterns within that's being influenced. So I can go for my defensive bonus, I can go for my research rate, and I can also get my military speed. And you can see that the barracks is picking up every single one of them. So that kind of demonstrates a little bit as to how this system works and functions and about the way that you should think about building your base. Because when it comes to your base, you're going to want to have it segmented based on what you've got your cistern doing. As an example, let's say that, you know what, let's just do it. Let's just go straight up. We'll try and get ourselves up to the Imperial Age particularly fast, and I'll give you guys just a few little things. Hold on, let's build our landmark somewhere over here, just for us to have a bit more space. Oh, we don't have the resources anyway. So what we can do is towards the front of our base, we could have our barracks that are being dropped down. We don't have a lot of space here, but you guys get the picture, right? So essentially, I'm throwing down my barracks in the front of my base, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep my cistern on conscriptio, and that's going to mean that all of the barracks here have a reduced amount of time. Let me turn off in a jiffy. They have a reduced amount of train time for each of my units instead of it being the full amount. So if we take a look here, you can see that the limited nigh is 17 seconds. But then when I switch it over to conscriptio, that is going to reduce that down to 9 seconds. So I want to segment them and compartmentalize my base so that I've got my military production under one cistern, and then under the other cistern, I would have things like my blacksmith, which is going to be largely for the research speed, dialecticus, there we go, dialecticus, and our university. We would always also look to place that here so that we can focus that specific compartment on research. And then, of course, when you're under siege, you're going to make sure that you switch these bad boys off. But speaking of under siege, I'm not talking just about the movie. I'm also talking about if you're under attack, let's say you've got to keep somewhere out here in the middle, what you can do is you can actually just throw your cistern down out in the middle. We've got 5 cisterns at the moment. I think you can get more than that, but you can never go above water level 5. But what you can do is extend that cistern out. So I might just delete these cisterns here, so I've got the resources to build a cistern on the front. And what you can do is throw that cistern down. Let's say that you've got your keep right there, and then you can extend your network out towards this. I don't have the ability to do it because, well, there we go. Because I was trying to go over here. And what that's going to do is with that cistern, I can then switch it over onto Presidium, and then that's going to allow my keep that's on the front line that might be getting sieged down by, some trebuchets or something to take reduced damage. And when you think about it, 25%, that's a huge amount of damage, right? That you're going to be having. It's an effective health boost. It means that you're going to be repairing more effectively. There's just so many positives for you to do that. The final mechanic that we need to talk about, arguably the best part of the Cistern system, is this bad boy right here. Let me see if I can find it. There we go. Click and boom. Akritoi defense. Arms nearby villagers with stronger weapons and increases their armor by +2 for 30 seconds. That might not seem like a lot, but I assure you, when you take a villager, or 10, or 20, and you're getting pushed in, and you're having a tough time, and all of a sudden, you've got an extra 2 armor on your units, all of a sudden you've got extra damage on your units. Here, let me hit this button. And keep in mind, there's no cost associated with this. I just press the button right there, and now all of a sudden you see that extra armor, and they also carry a different weapon now. So they've got 9 damage on their spear, which is a lot of damage. It means that you're going to have a much easier time defending against enemy all-ins. And because of that, I think that this justifies the Byzantines as a strong 2TC civilization, just simply because if you do try and attack them, they're going to be in a very solid position to defend, just because they can call their villagers with their increased armor, with their increased damage, to come and help them defend. Now, the final part of this that we need to talk about is the Age 3 landmark. So I've gone into the Golden Horn Tower on the backside, but there's actually a landmark that you can use to increase your cistern capacity. Now, it doesn't stack above the 5th level, but it just means that it's 1 less cistern that you have to build. And when you consider that I've got 4 cisterns at the moment, and my 5th cistern, actually, I take that back, I've got 3 cisterns, and my 4th one's going to cost 150, my 5th one's going to cost 200, it starts to get pretty expensive. So you can utilize that cistern as a way. I'll jump into the tech tree and just quickly show you exactly what I'm talking about. It's the cistern of the first hill. So this also acts as a cistern. One thing to note, though, when you're placing this bad boy down, it is the golden circle, or sorry, the golden square for this is absolutely monstrous. So just be careful about finding the right spot for it, because there's a good chance you're going to have to plan your base out in advance if you want to get this bad boy down, just simply because of how big that golden square is. But that's essentially it when it comes to the Cistern system. I hope that I haven't missed anything. If you've got any questions, make sure you leave them down in the comments. And other than that, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.